Alright, I changed my mind. This is 100% the horniest movie of the year.
Anything else I should know about?
No, just be yourself. They'll love you. It's relaxed, I promise.
And today we have Saltburn. This seems loosey-goosey and androgynous enough, I suppose. I don't know. I figure given what Mr. Keoghan shows in this film, this is the least I can do to pay my respects. I'm not gonna lie, the trailer for this came out and I wasn't altogether too incredibly interested. I will say, the main selling points for me were the aspect ratio the film is done in, but mainly the fact that it had, as I referenced, Barry Keoghan, which I guess we're just going to get into the cast immediately, real quick. Most recently covered him a little bit in my review for the Banshees of Inisherin, which, great movie. Talk about that. You check out my review for it if you want. My opinion of him has always stayed the same. Barry's great. And then Mr. Elordi? Is that how you say it? I just covered him as Mr. Presley himself in the recent Priscilla film. So vague, sort of weird, artsy-looking trailer aside, and the cast that were involved, I wasn't familiar with the director at first, but looking more into it, Fennell, mostly an actress and writer with not too much in the way of directing credits. But most notable film, which funny enough I did actually cover years ago when it came out. I remember I was disappointed by the film, but credit where credit's due, it's still a good film, props where props are due, but A Promising Young Woman. Same director of Promising Young Woman has now brought us Saltburn, which in retrospect does make a little bit of sense when I think about it. Fun fact, director of this movie, Saltburn, also was Midge in the Barbie movie. So, fun facts. I remember the trailer came out for Saltburn, and it went to the back burner for some unknown reason in my mind. I was like, okay, looks interesting, I'll watch it eventually. And then I just didn't make a plan. And then one of the friends in my group, luckily they piped up and said, hey, I'm very interested, you guys want to catch a late showing this one night and just kind of knock it out, see how it is. And I had heard virtually nothing about it. I think maybe I heard good things, but I was like, yeah, I'm always down for a good time. And this is one of those movies I'm pleased to report back and say I loved Saltburn personally. I'm surprised by how much I loved this movie. And I know for a fact that this is a very divisive film. The reviews say as much, and especially if you look on Google or IMDb, it is split in this almost a mix of people who love the film or people who just hated the film. I'm speaking in generalizations here. My initial reaction walking out was, oh my god, I loved all of that. Killer performances across the board. For me, no surprise. I know Barry Keoghan turned in a killer performance. Not to mention, Jacob, once again, a killer performance. Really, again, I'm just getting ahead of myself here. The entire cast in this film, everybody turns in a great performance. They're all very memorable characters. Love them or hate them, everybody is so good in this movie. It's great. Also, in the words of John Mulaney, if you're gonna watch this film...
Not unless everyone gets real cool about a bunch of stuff really quickly.
This film is dirty. I mean, look, I don't have the most reputable and respectable browser history for my own penchants. I'll be the first to admit it. So I was 100% on board when this movie gets dirty, this movie gets scandalous, this movie gets kinky. To borrow from Jason Parkin's latest book, this film gets da filthy. But I'm here for it. I don't know if you're going to be up for it or not. I see the memes on TikTok, the reactions of people being horrified or walking out being like, oh my, whoo,
Hear me when I say, hey, it's murder on the dance floor.
Literally, I was the one who was jamming out as I'm walking out of the theater. Oh man, what a time and a half. The narrative, loved it. The story, the narrative arc that these characters take, especially our main character, all comes together in the end. I loved it. I like the story. I like what they did. I'm not going to even remotely spoil what happens. Go in as blind as possible, and you will be in for a ride. And the direction and the cinematography in this joint, oh my god, there have been a few cases this year where the direction in the film visually has stunned me here or there, but this is one of those. This might be one of the top 5 times, visually speaking, this film was like just some beautifully composed shots, and something about the aspect ratio also makes it a bit more closed in, a bit more on the intimate side for many scenes. But just the way the care with a lot of the shots in this movie that was taken is like with the play with light and with color and the characters, and so many of these scenes could be like little portraits or paintings or little postcard stills you put in your, I don't know, like it's a beautiful film. I loved the cinematography in this, and a delightful like kind of jab at the rich as well. Like if you're into that whole eat the rich mentality, then you're gonna appreciate a lot of the commentary and observations and the jokes that are kind of made and that come from being in their circles or witnessing kind of how their social circles work. And also the writing's great. This film is unironically very funny throughout. There's a lot of humor to be drawn from, or even like dark funny sometimes, like darkly funny. What do they call it? It's technically considered a thriller comedy, and I suppose in the trailer there's moments that are played for comedy. So yes, technically the movie is a comedy, but that just means that it just works well doing what it's doing. It works well as a thriller and a comedy. Though I would say it's more of a drama comedy, but I guess call it more thrilling overall, I suppose. The balance, most importantly, the balance between humor and the dark themes that are involved in this film, or like dark moments or what have you. The balance between comedy and drama is masterfully done. Again, I loved it. Can't sing its praises enough. The only complaints I think that I had coming out of this film, slight pacing issues, kind of. Like maybe a couple moments where the pacing is a little bit odd. I mean, overall it works. Overall, the film's pacing and strengths and like expediency and its progression, it all works more often very well than otherwise. But you know, if I had to nitpick, there's a couple moments where I'm like, okay, this is the pacing of that little one scene or that little section was a little bit stilted, but that's few and far between. My only other complaint would be that a couple characters can be a bit too much. If that, like, I know some of them are supposed to be a little bit much, and I get that, and I'm not saying any characters in this film are like caricatures of themselves or have like a cartoonish way or mannerism about them, but there's a couple characters here and there that do get like, they toe that line a little bit, where they get like, they can be a little bit much. Almost all the characters work well, but there's a couple where I'm like, okay. But throughout the film, overall, it's an enjoyable time. It's great being able to, all these characters, I always bring up onions and layers in a lot of my reviews, surprisingly, but a lot of these characters in the film, especially getting to these like rich hoity-toity people that present as one way, and our main character is able to kind of pierce these inner circles and peel back the layers. You see more to characters than you might initially think, basically. Like there's deeper layers to everybody. But man, oh man, I'll just leave it at that. End of the day, as long as you're okay with some dark themes, some dark comedy, and some very inappropriate, some very kinky and borderline, I don't want to say disturbing, but some kinky and some pretty dirty, maybe filthy subject content, but like filthy in the best way, you're in for a good time. I'll leave it at that, just to kind of give like a minor sort of trigger warning of sorts, if you want to call it that. But if you believe in me and my opinions, even this much, and you like my similar taste, and you like the two actors involved, you like the trailer interests you even a little bit, go into this movie as blind as possible, and I promise you, you will have one of the most unique, one of the most unforgettable experiences cinematically this year. This might make the top 10. I loved it and enjoyed it so much. This film accomplishes precisely what it set out to do, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much for so many reasons. It's basically perfect, but there's a couple little chinks in the armor. So I think it's only fair if I give this film it's a rare one, but I'll give it a low 5 out of 5. A low 5 out of 5, only because I cannot look you in the electronic theoretical eye and tell you that it's perfect. It has some slight flaws in my opinion. Pretty much perfection is what I would say at the end of the day. I loved it. I recommend it. I think it's definitely worth seeing in theaters. It's just such a unique experience, but a lot of interesting stuff happens in this movie. But I loved it. But if you didn't, disagree or whatever, comment below, let me know. By all means, let's argue about it. But as always, thank you guys and gals so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie review I make next. And goodbye, travelers.